Good morning, everyone. It's Lee Henson, President and Founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's episode of the Daily Standup. So without any further ado, let's get started. Can you believe it's already Thursday? The week has sailed by. Things have been going smooth. I hope you've had an amazing week. I hope you've grown. I hope you've gotten a lot of good topics in. Today, I want to talk to you about a topic that I really feel comfortable talking about, which I probably shouldn't. I want to talk to you today about the 5 things that I absolutely hate about Scrum. I know what you're thinking. That's kind of a crappy way to do a podcast on a Thursday, but I think that you have to understand a journey. So here we go. Back in the day, we're talking 2003, 2004, when I was learning about Scrum and I took my certified Scrum Master class. Scrum was pretty simple. It was easily laid out. There was a product owner, a Scrum Master, a team. Everything was laid out in such a way that it was easy to comprehend and easy to pick up on. And it was just 3 key meetings. You had the daily stand-up, you had your sprint planning, and then you had your review with your retro at the end. I mean, everything was just kind of super easy to pull it all together, right? But then it just became convoluted and polluted. And the more I learned, the more I experienced, and the more people started to add, eventually we came up with things like, extra things that were added on top of Scrum. And I understand Scrum's a framework, but all these extra things came in, and it became painfully obvious that people were trying to either dilute or pollute Scrum to make it something that it really was never intended to be. So with that being the case, I want to talk about Scrum today and talk about the 5 things that really drive me mad. They drive me crazy. So here we go. Coming out number 1, I'm going to say it. Scrum is relentless. It's one of these things where once you start, you can't stop. And there's a goal, and you achieve the goal, and there's a new sprint goal, and it's wash, rinse, repeat. It's like a bottle of shampoo. I told my friends once, I said I once took a shower and decided to wash my hair, and it frustrated me because I was in there for 6 months because I never knew when to get out, because it was wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. That was a terrible joke. But the point is, every single sprint, you get this goal that's looming over you that you need to do. And then you have to decide, well, do we want to try something new to get this goal done? Do we want to keep doing what we're doing? And there's so many things that you can do and you can add on. Sometimes the things that the daily stand-up are irrelevant. And, it's just crazy how Scrum asks you to do certain things, but it becomes something that you lose control of if you're not careful. It becomes something that runs away like a runaway train, right? And I think that if you're not focused, that it's going to cause you great stress, it's going to cause you distress, and it's going to be worse than doing other things that you could be doing. But I want to make it clear, I'm not saying that Scrum is a bad thing, so to speak. What I'm saying is that these things, if you're not careful, can make Scrum way worse than it should be. Instead of making these lofty, relentless, every single sprint crack the whip, we need to have a way to make sure we're creating an environment where people feel good about what they're doing and they love what they do. So I think it's just important for us not to let Scrum become the let's take this 24 hours at a time and figure out exactly what we're doing for our daily stand-up and plan everything down to the teeth. And if you do that, you're going to end up in the throes of doing something that's going to make your organization worse off. I think a big piece of this, and here's your hint, is that if you have the proper culture, these things won't matter. Number 2, Scrum absolutely 100% puts too much responsibility in a single person. Ding, ding, ding. Anybody want to guess which person I'm going to say? The product owner. That's right. The product owner is responsible for maximizing value. The product owner is responsible for governing one product. The product owner is responsible for maintaining and keeping a proper product backlog. The product owner is responsible for making sure everything's right-sized and easily consumable by a team. The product owner is responsible for understanding all the wants, needs, whims, and desires of the consumer. The product owner is responsible for making sure that they understand all the strategic value for the organization. The product owner is responsible for making sure they understand technological feasibility and the risks that it might present. The product owner is responsible, and if you don't do this, you're not doing Scrum. Oh my goodness. Somebody give me a break. If I'm running a brand spanking new business from scratch, or if I'm running a $300 billion organization, that's putting a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of a single person, right? And it's just, and the best part is they say, oh, well, this person, you can govern 6 products or 8 products, or whatever the magic number is, right? And we want you to divide your time evenly across those. We want you to spend 26% of your time on this one, 31% of your time on this one, 84% of your time on this one, 71% of your time on this one, 42% of your time on this one, and 56% of your time on this one. Because when you add that together using Common Core math, that should equal 100% of your time. Come on, don't say you're not there. We have too many people who are already there that are struggling, right? I'm not saying the other positions aren't abused, but I'm seeing product owner as the most abused position, right? We need to make sure that we're doing what makes sense. And I know that sounds so harsh, but common sense prevails. Number 3, whenever Scrum fails, you're not doing Scrum. Oh my goodness. That is such a cop-out answer. Oh, well, no wonder it failed. Of course it didn't work out. You weren't doing Scrum, duh. Goodness, if I hear one more person say it's either Scrum or Scrum, but, and you didn't abide by this rule, and oh my goodness, it makes my heart palpitate just thinking about it, right? So I think that most people don't want to do a bad job when they come to work. I think that they want to find the cleanest and easiest way for them to get their work done. But I think that, when people come in and they say, see, I told you the Scrum's going to work. We should have been doing safe all along. So we're going to do safe instead. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, or whatever it is, disciplined agile. So we can choose our own way of working. It's, sorry, I had to laugh at that for a second, but it's just, there's so many different caveats and so many different things. And it's easy to just blame the system. The system failed us, right? And the truth is, the system didn't fail you. You failed by not doing the things you needed to do. So it perturbs me to see that when people use this and leverage this as a weakness, that what they're actually saying is that it would have been better for them to have not done Scrum at all than to do Scrum and fail. I disagree. I think that a whole part of the empirical process is the learning capability, the ability to fail early and to course correct. And I think if we're not going through and doing inspect, adapt, and being transparent, that we're setting ourselves up for that failure. So you have to understand that those things happen. Coming in at number 4, most Scrum Masters struggle in their role. Fact, fact, fact. Here, I'm going to say it. Most Scrum Masters that I hear that are like selected to be the Scrum Master are ill-equipped to succeed. They don't have the right tools. Nobody understands what they really do. They find people who are very dogmatic in what they do. They're inflexible in their interpretation of what Scrum really means. They're cracking a whip to try to get things done. A lot of them come from a project management background. Many of them try to govern more than one project at a time and are associated with projects instead of teams. I mean, I could go on, right? But they're treating it like a project manager would instead of treating it like a servant leader would. And that's the big one. And I think that what I found when I offer my certified Scrum Master courses is that people still really are struggling to understand where the value comes and what a Scrum Master really does. And I know that sounds so caveat today with, we're 100 years into Scrum. We shouldn't be suffering from these things, but we do. So we're still right back where we were before. And I think that you need to understand that Scrum is a framework, and you need to understand that 70%, yes, I said it, 70% of what a Scrum Master does is intangible. You're not going to have a report that tells you, did a Scrum Master do their job? I think that what you need to do is trust the people who are in a Scrum Master role, align them with the team so they can govern the teams and help those teams be successful by helping the team solve problems that they can solve themselves and helping remove impediments that they can't. And if we do that, then Scrum Masters will much better understand their role and they'll much better be able to do their role, right? So that, in case you can't tell, I'm going from the bad to worse here, right? And coming in at number 5, finally, Scrum is just too difficult to scale. That's why we're going to do safe, or we're going to do less, or we're going to do Nexus, or whatever, the Spotify model. Here's the deal. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do, right? If what you're doing is creating bad things. So if you're cranking out hundreds of technical user requirements documents, and each one's bigger than the last, and they got all this great information inside, but the next one's bigger and better, and you have so many of these that you could choose from, and the best thing to do is try to build all of them and throw it at the wall and see what sticks so you can come up with the best practical. Oh my goodness, if I hear these stories one more time. The truth is, I don't care. I'm a big fan of acronyms, and I don't care how big your turd is. It doesn't smell any better. That turd, by the way, is technical user requirements document. Bigger doesn't mean better. Bigger doesn't mean it smells better. It's easier to handle. It's a better read. Bigger just means it sucks that much more. If what you're doing is not working, don't scale to try to fix it. In fact, when most people come to me and talk about scaling, the first thing I talk to them about is descaling, scaling back. Let's figure out how to limit WIP. Let's figure out how to get things in place. But the truth is, you're right. Scrum is difficult to scale because it was never intended to be the key to scaling. The key to scaling is to learn how to do Agile correctly, holistically, and to create an environment where you have a company culture that supports Scrum, and you have an environment of psychological safety, and you have people who understand their roles and responsibilities, in which case Scrum scales magnificently without doing Less or Nexus or Scrum at Scale or Safe or Spotify or DAD. You don't have to do any of those things. All you have to do is do Agile correctly from the beginning, and it automatically scales. There's no secret to this, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes Scrum's biggest strength, or what most people look at as Scrum's biggest flaw. It's important for you to leverage and understand that if you're suffering from a problem, it's your responsibility to ask yourself, why are we suffering from this problem? What is causing this? What's putting us in this predicament? Where are we taking things? How can we become better or stronger? And what can we do to help solve the problem instead of just identifying the symptoms? And I see over and over again that Scrum Masters and other coaches and leadership, they're so inundated with symptoms that they never get to the heart of the problem. So if you look and ask yourself, what are the things that I hate the most about our Agile journey, or what are the things I hate the most about Scrum? Those are going to be the areas where you need to dig to find the biggest strength. Because what I can promise you is if you do, that's going to be your silver lining, and that's going to be the piece that's going to help you accelerate what you're doing and help you be successful. So I hope you find this useful. As always, I encourage you, if you have a topic you want to hear on the Daily Stand-Up Podcast, we would love to hear from you. You can send those topics over to us at learnmore@agiledad.com, where we can address those and get a podcast out here. I am so excited. Next Monday, coming up soon, we're going to do our second Agile Experts podcast. So we're going to have the Agile Expert series. Our second expert's going to be on. I don't want to give too much away, but hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow. We'll tell you some more about it so you can get excited for next Monday. But as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.